Welcome on the Leaders Who Care, another episode. Actually, as we're coming towards the end of the year, I'm super grateful to welcome another special guest onto the show. Today, I had the privilege to welcome Carlos Terol. Carlos is a change maker for more than 10 years, passionate about inspiring others to create a positive impact in the world. He himself is an impact entrepreneur, which we'll talk more about what this means. Founder of Good Ripple and global community in change making with more than 2,000 people across 93 countries. He's also the founder of Bagmaya and Terol Engineering and also deeply passionate about sustainability, as he's also a top voice on LinkedIn with more than 20,000 followers. Carlos, thank you for joining us today and welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Marian. It's a real pleasure for me to be here today.
Well, as we're on a mission to show the world that care is not a weakness, but if anything, inspire more people to lead with care, as that gives great impact and fulfillment. In fact, that goes across boundaries or religions. It rises there, and we would like to really understand and learn more about you. What an impact entrepreneur means to you, and how did you decide to do what you do today? What inspired you to be here?
Yeah, thanks, Marian. Good question. I think to me, an impact entrepreneur, it's someone who's trying to create a better world in any shape or form or degree, right? Because sometimes we see entrepreneurs as these people who create unicorns and they become billionaires. But I think entrepreneurship is a lot more than that. Entrepreneurship is also about coming up with innovative ideas, even if it's just impacting your community but still creating a positive impact. And I think there needs to be a lot more awareness about the fact that you can create positive impact as an entrepreneur, because when we think of impact, traditionally we tend to think of non-profits, NGOs, and that's great. We really need those, but also we need a lot of people creating innovation, creating companies that change the world in different ways. And that's why I really like the term of impact entrepreneur, because it's sort of saying, I'm innovating for the world, but I'm creating something that's really making the world a better place, and not just selling a product or a service for the sake of selling and making a profit, but it's got a higher purpose to it. And the way I came about it, I'm from the Canary Islands. It's a small islands in Spain. We're in front of Africa. And when I was 24 years old, I was a very normal guy. Like, I just wanted to make money in life, have a big house, have a few fancy cars.
Mhm.
But luckily, my friend from Western Sahara, which is just in front of the Canary Islands, told me to go there with him one day. So I took this flight, which is just a 30-minute flight from Gran Canaria, where I'm from. And suddenly I landed in this world that was totally different to the world that I was used to in the Canary Islands. And the fact that it was only 30 minutes away, it made me realize that I had to do something about it, because I was only able to, to have a career and to have a degree because I had been born 30 minutes away from there. Because suddenly I saw all of these people with no opportunities in life, living in poverty, and just because they were born 30 minutes away from where I was born, right? So that sort of clicked in me, and I started thinking, okay, what can I do in my life to really make a difference? So I came to the UK 2015, and I started volunteering for a charity called Engineers Without Borders, and started to grow my interest in social impact, sustainability. And after 5 years, I went volunteering to Nepal and spent 3 months there in a rural village. And after that experience, I came up with the first idea for a purpose company. That was Bagmaya, which is the company I founded in 2018. And we started creating sustainable products made with hemp in Nepal. And that was the very beginning of my career as an entrepreneur, because I didn't even know, what an entrepreneur was, or if it was something that I could do. So I started doing that on my free time, and apart from my normal day-to-day 9 to 5 job. And suddenly I started loving the idea of coming up with innovation and doing all of these different things. And over time I realized that that's where my heart was, in creating impact as an entrepreneur. So I left my 9 to 5 job and then started creating more and more impact, and everything led me to last year creating Good Ripple, which is a platform to connect change makers, which in just 1 year we've grown to 2200 people. Thousand, I wish at some point. But we grew to 2200 people in just 1 year. And we're connecting all of these change makers, and now we're seeing how they're collaborating to create more impact together. And to me, like seeing every day, like how these people are coming together, and somehow I'm helping them creating those connections and amplifying their impact, that really gives me a lot of meaning and purpose every day. And yeah, looking back, I think I would probably, yeah, never go back to the sort of 9 to 5 job. And I think like the innovation that I'm trying to create, it really helps me, keep going every day. That motivation to see like things are changing for the better, and we can come together and create more positive change together. Yeah, that's kind of how I ended up being an entrepreneur.
That sounds really great, and how it sounds it's grown very quickly. What do you think was the not the secret, but the reason for such a great success or high rapid growth for the community, for the Good Ripple? I mean, apart from the core of it and just bringing people together, was there obviously certain steps that because there are a lot of people want to create those communities, but they're not so easy to be activated and nourished and maintained to continue to thrive.
Yeah, I agree. And it was funny because last year in November was when we started. And believe me or not, I thought I'm gonna start this because my idea was that I was lacking a platform where I could find other change makers easily. So it really came from my own pain of not being able to connect with other change makers. But I thought, because I had already experienced creating other startups, I know that you have to validate your idea very well before you go and start building something. So I thought, okay, so let me validate the idea of a platform for connecting change makers by creating something that's very quick that you can start testing. And that was a community. So I just took a platform online that was already there to create communities and went with that, started the community the next day. In my mind, we would be there, just my girlfriend and I, for a few months, thinking, well, it's probably just gonna be the two of us, because maybe not many people care about this. It's maybe just my own idea, my own pain. But actually, it started resonating with people really well, and people started joining. I think in just 1 month, we reached over 200 people the first month, and that's all exclusively through LinkedIn. So we don't run any advertising, we don't use any other platform, we don't even have our own website. We just have the community platform, which we use nas.io. And yeah, so suddenly seeing all these people coming into the community started validating the idea, and I started chatting with all of them. I've had hundreds of video calls in the last year with community members, and the recurring theme that I'm hearing from all of them is that yes, there's actually no platform out there where we can come together and connect with other change makers and amplify our impact. So I think the fact that there's nothing out there similar, or very much like we're doing, it's definitely one of the keys for success. It's the fact that there's nothing so similar in a way. And fifth, people in the change making space, what we're hearing is that they feel quite isolated. So there's a real pain in there that people want to change the world, but changing the world is a daunting task if you try to do it on your own. So people are looking for ways of finding more people to come together and suddenly don't feel that's such a big task, because if we come together, then it's more achievable, right? It looks more realistic. So that's one thing, that the fact that it wasn't anything like that there, and there was an existing pain that people were feeling, change makers were feeling. And also the fact, I think that in parallel, I started creating a lot of content on LinkedIn around social impact and sustainability. And that was my strategy to sort of gauge whether people were interested. And that's kind of what I was thinking. I want to give a lot of value to change makers so that they can start, making more impact with these resources that I'm going to be creating for them. And I think I was thinking, I want to give a lot more than I take from them and just see where this goes. So I've spent the last year creating a lot of content for change makers, and I think that's been a big success factor in there because they found that super helpful, and they've been like really grateful for that, and they've sort of used that to come into the community thanks to that. So yes, I think those three factors are probably the key. Using LinkedIn as the main platform and giving a lot of value to people, thinking what do change makers need? How can I help change makers have an easier life and make more impact? And then just creating those valuable resources for them.
No, that's just means so logical and natural. But thank you for highlighting this. It's but also it's born from a sincere passion and love for it. I think that's really makes the secret ingredient that whatever you do, just love what you do.
Yeah,
Otherwise, it's difficult. And
thank you.
so, how can leaders really having thoughts about creating a positive impact translate this into action? So maybe that they are starting to think, hey, this is I'm not satisfied with just running a day-to-day business or just doing what I do. I want to do more and have a positive action or positive impact. What is your advice to them in terms of starting on that journey?
Good question. I think in a lot of cases, people would try to find something they're passionate about, right, and try to utilize that as a catalyst for change. And I do think that's a great strategy. I do think if you can sit down, and this is something I did myself last year. I sat down for 1 hour, locked myself in a room, and I started thinking, well, if I could do only one thing for the rest of my life, what would that look like? What is it that I could be doing in 30 years time that I would still find meaningful, joyful, and having an impact? And I think if people could do a little bit more of this reflection and going deep into their own values, their own passions, I think that can really make a big change in how they approach their business and their life and start finding areas where they can change and start creating more impact. But on the other hand, as well, I think sometimes maybe it's not so much about looking our own, skills or expertise, but sometimes also it's about looking what does the world need, right? What does the world need right now in terms of change and impact, and then trying to do something that aligns with that and learning to enjoy that. I think we don't talk about that a lot. Like normally it's about pick something you enjoy and do what you love and try to do good with it. I think that works. But there's also that other strategy where it's like, okay, what does the world need? Okay, the world needs this type of change. How can I start applying that and tackling that change? And how can I learn to enjoy that process and be joyful and be happy in that strategy? Because I think on the one hand it helps you become also like more resilient. You're going to be developing lots of skills, and at the same time, because you're doing something that's purposeful, because you've identified an area that needs to be changed or improved for the world, then that's going to be self-motivating you to carry on, because you're going to be seeing that you're making an impact, that you're tackling something that's purposeful. So I think those two strategies can really work well for people who are thinking, okay, I want to make change, but I'm not sure what it is. So maybe start with going deep into your own values, maybe finding those passions. But some people sometimes don't find those passions. They say, well, yeah, I don't really know. Like I've gone deep, but I don't really know what I can do. If you find yourself in that situation, then just find something that needs to be changed or improved and start going into that area and developing yourself into that area, learn more about it, maybe do some courses on that topic, read some books on that topic, and you start developing this growth mindset that, okay, I can actually tackle that change. And suddenly, in all that process, you probably come up with ideas on how you can tackle that and maybe how you can combine it with your current job, with your current company. And suddenly you find that ikigai where everything aligns and you're not just not doing harm to the world or people, but you're actually creating positive impact because you're identified that area that needs to be improved.
Very well. I like the way you put it because sometimes I see a lot of the biggest pressures for young people is they want to be successful. They want to explore the world and just make it out there. But then the question becomes, they have so much choice. It's like decision
Mm,
fatigue they have, and they're just really difficult. You want to climb that mountain, but which one is it? Because there are hundreds of mountains that you can climb. So that's what's the biggest challenge. They have all these results. Then at the same time have pressure from friends, social media, family to do something, and just really. So maybe if you give some advice to the young people that or Gen Zs like they're really on that exploration journey, I like the way you
mm.
put it. On one end is find what you like and what you're passionate about and see how you can make a difference with it. That's great. Find your gift. Another one is see what the world needs and what are the problems that you deeply care about and see if we can solve them through or learn to enjoy that process. So it's really uh, a different way to look into it and really
Yeah.
make that. But what you're saying here is whatever you do, just do it from your heart, deeply care about it. And
Yeah, that's a good summary. And also for those young people, I would recommend just testing a lot of things because even for me, like sometimes in life, you think you're going to like something, but once you start doing it, maybe you don't like it that much, or you don't see that huge of an impact, or maybe something else comes up thanks to that. So I think there's a lot of value in testing, even if it doesn't go well. I think it was Gandhi that said, I don't lose, I either win or learn, right?
mm,
So if you test, the worst case scenario is you're going to learn something from that testing. Um, there's a lot of fear sometimes to test, right? Because he's like, okay, but what if I test and I fail? But I think changing that approach and thinking, well, if I fail, I'm going to learn something from it. But also something that works is thinking, how can I de-risk this test? And maybe you don't have to go all in to that test, but maybe do it on the side, or what's like the minimum test that you can do to try if you like it or if it's having the positive impact that you think. So I think that mindset of, okay, how can I de-risk this action or this little project that I want to try so that I can do it and there's not a big loss or a big risk if it doesn't go well, because that also allows you to test many different ideas. Maybe you're passionate about different projects and you're not sure which one to go for. So if you identify ways of de-risking each of those tests and do little projects for each of them, it can give you a lot of options and a lot of clarity as to, well, actually this is the one that I really want to go for because I just did a couple of things and I'm really enjoying it, I'm seeing the impact, let's do more. So then you can start taking incremental steps to go to the next stage, but not necessarily you have to go all into one thing, but think about the risking the options and doing tests in a sort of safe environment before you go all in.
oh, I love that. And I was just thinking, how can we wave that authentic care into positive business success and change for the better? Because there's still a lot of businesses and practices that the focus is not so much to the impact and the care, really deeply caring about is more profitability, regardless of the means. Um,
Yeah.
do you see that positive movement that world is moving in this direction, and what can we do to accelerate that?
Yeah, good question. I think, in my personal opinion and my experience, is like, yes, I do see a transition there, and I'm seeing more and more leaders who care coming up in the world. And I think it's just a natural process of the whole global movement that's moving towards more social impact, more sustainability. But I think you're right. There's still like lots of businesses who maybe don't care as much, or they're just ticking the boxes to show that they care, but they don't really care. And to me, one of the most powerful actions we can take is inspire and mobilize more people to care, and sharing this motivation and sharing insights, knowledge, inspiration. Because eventually, if we get more people to care in general, more leaders who care will eventually arise, right? And you'll have more companies being led by people who care. Just because of as pure statistics, you'll get more people who care, so there'll be eventually more leaders who care. So I think just raising awareness. I think when we live in our little bubbles of impact, we think that everyone around cares, and you see like so many other businesses and leaders who care. But if we move out of those bubbles, there's still a big proportion of the world population who maybe doesn't care that much. And that doesn't mean that they just don't care. It may mean that they haven't got the opportunity to develop that care for these topics. And if we can bring this opportunity to them, lots of them may eventually go end up to develop that care and that purpose aligned mission. So I think raising awareness, talking more about it, even if it's with your neighbors or with your community, talking about it and say, hey, I'm working on this. You never know who you can inspire, or you might plant a seed in somebody's head that might take 5 or 10 years to develop, but if it eventually develops, it's thanks to that little seed that somebody planted and then everything else that came together. So I think there's a lot of potential there to just grow more awareness around those topics. And also, I think like even research now is showing how businesses who actually care and they have a triple bottom line with profit, people, and planet, they outperform those that don't have a triple bottom line. So in a way, even if businesses don't care, but if you start doing that triple bottom line, you can have a competitive advantage. And I'm not a big advocate of doing something for the wrong reasons, but I think in the transition at least, even if you're doing it for the wrong reasons but you're doing the right thing, it's still the right thing to do. And eventually you can get more people to share their actual values and start doing it for the right reasons as well, not just the right thing but for the right reasons. But I think in that transition it's fine to maybe have some businesses not doing it for the right reasons but are still they're doing the right thing. So yeah, I think a lot of awareness and also being forgiving that businesses are not perfect and they're figuring out how to navigate this transition and how to start helping more people and more the planet as well.
Oh, that's very helpful. And in just thinking of how can other leaders who care, especially our community that's listening here, benefit from the good ripple? Because what you've really created today is something really inspiring.
Yeah, so we're all about creating collaborations and about bringing change makers together. So, leaders are more than welcome to join our community. It's for free. They can just go on nas.io/good-ripple and join there for free, and then start coming together with other change makers, coming together with other leaders who are creating change or finding people to join their teams, or just having a buddy where you can share your highs and lows as well. Sometimes we just need that somebody that we can share. We're not having a great day because entrepreneurship and being a leader is tough, right? And it's even tougher when you're trying to solve the world's biggest problems.
Mhm.
So we really need this network of people where we can rely on and yeah and share our emotions. I think that's powerful. So yeah, more than welcome everybody who's listening to join our community and start collaborating with other change makers.
No, you've been doing that for like many years now, for more than 10 years. How do you take care of yourself, Carlos? What gives you the sustainability and the energy and the passion, the resources that you need to keep going?
Mm. So I have a good morning routine that really helps me. And so I do a lot of meditation, yoga, and breath work as well. And I do that first thing in the morning. So when the day goes crazy, at least I'm sure that I've done that little bit for me in the morning. Some days I don't do the whole thing because it takes like 2 to 3 hours. Some days I just have like my non-negotiables, which is at least like 20 minutes of meditation, and that really helps me have that foundation throughout the day of working a little bit on my own mind and understanding, whatever happens, I can choose how to react to those, right?
Mm.
Sometimes it's easier, sometimes it's more difficult, but doing that practice in the morning really helps bringing that awareness. And that really helps me a lot. Yeah, when things get difficult throughout the day, when I've done that meditation in the morning, and I do feel a difference. I do feel that I have that mental space to say, hey, I can choose how to react to this thing that just happened, because I don't have power to control life or the world, but I do have that power to decide how I react to it. So I think that morning routine really, really helps me. There's been a few days where I've skipped it. I feel a huge difference those days. I'm like, I shouldn't have skipped it this morning. So yeah, trying to be really disciplined with it. I learned meditation quite a few years ago, and I do see the impact that it's done over my life. I think I would probably be really burned out if it wasn't for that morning routine and that meditation that I do.
No, that's really helpful. And what about really practicalities? How do you sustain yourself from? Because sometimes being an impact entrepreneur is not easy at all. Often social, it requires a lot of giving, as you said, a lot of really investment, and it's a lot of people don't realize the sacrifice that goes into it.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, exactly. I think it really takes a lot of time and energy and effort, but ultimately, when you do these things that are aligned with your values, and you know that there's a higher purpose, something bigger than yourself, it's really that thing that gives you energy, that puts your smile in the face. And I think thanks to that, it's really worthwhile. And whenever I'm doing something that's not aligned with that higher purpose, I can feel how it's draining energy from me, whereas when I'm doing something that's aligned with that purpose, it's giving me energy. So I think it's about balancing that and trying to do spend more of our time into those things that give us energy, and somehow try to get rid of those that drain the energy from us. And if you have a balance, that's good, but eventually you want to be doing as much as possible the things that give you energy.
And what is your dream for the Good Ripple? What would you like to see?
Yes, our dream, it's quite ambitious. We would like to, be the go-to hub for change makers in the world. And it's not just about the UK or Europe, it's about a platform that could be used by anyone, anywhere in the world. Whether you are a sustainability professional in Manhattan or a social entrepreneur in the middle of a rural village in Africa, we would love you to have this platform where you can find all of these change makers around you that help you amplify your impact. So it means reaching a whole lot of people in the world. We have a dream of creating 8 billion change makers.
Oh,
It's a big dream, very ambitious. But yeah, we'll dream about it. So I'm sure we'll manage to get close to it.
no, that is really helpful. And if you had no limits in terms of resources, and you're in a position to change one thing in the world, what would that be?
That's a good question. Um, I think if I could do anything, I would probably help. I would make people. I would just create 8 billion change makers. I think that's the key. If we have 8 billion change makers, then everything else will naturally happen because there'll be 8 billion people, creating all of this change. So I think infinite resources. I would empower 8 billion people to to become change makers.
That sounds fantastic. Carlos, really super grateful for what you're doing and the work you do. Um, in Would you like to maybe share some advice to organizations that are maybe in the corporate world or looking at their impact and sustainability? What would be your advice to them if they're starting on this journey?
Yeah, I would say be patient because it's not an easy space to navigate. I think lots of companies they're just starting to understand, you know, what impact is, what's their own impact in on people, on the planet. And it's definitely not an easy process. It's a very complex issue. And you know, sometimes we see a lot of finger pointing from people to companies, and you know, a lot of greenwashing in a way. And obviously, we need to try to avoid those things, greenwashing and all the rest. But we also need to understand that you know, companies are on a journey, and they just can go from one day to the next one and become super sustainable and change everything because it's a complex issue. So I think being patient with your own company and your own processes at the same time that you push to make things as fast as possible, but without you know falling in the trap of feeling guilty because you're not doing enough. It's like, okay, you need to try and do as much as possible, but also be aware that you can't just change overnight the way you do everything. You know, and there'll be people who maybe are a little bit judgmental, a little bit negative about those. But I think overall, if you have the right intentions that you really want to, you know, make progress and change, that's what really matters. And just keep, you know, improving every day, learning every day, and trying to figure out, you know, how you can swap from maybe doing harm to not just avoiding harm, but going the next step, which is actually creating that positive impact. So yeah, it's a journey, and it can be overwhelming if you try to tackle everything at once. So I'll say, you know, start with little steps that you can make them happen realistically, and grow from there. You know, have big goals, big targets, but also be realistic in the short term of the things that you can do with the resources you have, because whether we like it or not, resources are limited, right? And we have to prioritize those. But yeah, I'll say if you haven't yet, bring in the triple bottom line into your business and start considering more the social impact, the climate and environmental impact. And yeah, start empowering also everybody in the company. You know, it doesn't have to be just senior management and the leaders that make these decisions, but I think it's about empowering everyone within that organization to bring forward ideas and projects, and start taking action, because chances are you already have champions within your organization who want to create change, and maybe they don't have that platform to make it happen. So I think it's important also to identify these people and empower them to really take forward those initiatives, because sometimes, you know, it's not that it's all down to you as a leader, but as we normally say, a good leader creates many other leaders, right? So if you can create more leaders within your organization, empower them to create positive change, then you're going to see that change happening a lot faster. And also, you won't be that overwhelmed because it's not all down to you to make those decisions and take those actions, but it's shared across everyone in the team. I really love the concept of, you know, co-creation. So if you can co-create change within your organization, that's a big win.
Excellent. And if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do so? Maybe for advice, maybe to be part of the community, and maybe if you point out some resources or information that could be helpful, that would be also useful for our audience.
Yeah, 100%. I say the best way is on LinkedIn. So if you look me on LinkedIn, Carlos Terol, and send me a connection request, I'm more than happy to connect with change makers. Just mention you're coming from the leaders who care, so I know that you've listened to this, and I'll be more than happy to respond any questions or yeah, help in any way that I can.
Excellent, Carlos. Thank you so much for being a leader who cares, for making a difference, and really appreciate taking the time today and being the change we want to see around us. So thank you, and God bless you and your community and your family and the work you do.
Thanks a lot, Marian. It's been a real pleasure being here. And thanks a lot for what you're doing because you're really creating a really amazing space for leaders to inspire more people. So I'm hugely appreciative of the work you're doing.
It's an honor. Thank you.
Thank you.